Sue, is Joe coming? Okay. All right. Is that slow or is this fast? Okay, when my clock hits 7:30, I'm hitting. Good evening, everyone. It being 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday, March 18th, 2026, let us begin our town council meeting. Would you join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would you remain standing for a moment of silence for all those serving in our military at home and abroad. Thank you. Clerk Semino, could we please have a roll call to begin the meeting?
Here. Councilor Diuti? Here. Councilor Flaherty? Here. Councilor Maglio? Here. Councilor Moran?
Here.
Councilor Quilty? Here. Councilor Reynolds?
Here.
Councilor Ringus will not be attending this evening. Councilor Sterling? Here. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's begin with announcements. Are any council members have announcements? Councilor Quilty.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I am thrilled to announce that we are currently in the process of resuscitating the Friends of Elder Affairs group. What do? They raise funds to supplement town funds. They raise the funds through, different ways, such as fundraisers and things like that, to supplement town funds, not replace them. How do they do this? By holding fundraisers, membership fees, etc. How will this benefit the seniors? Activities such as trips, lunches, meals, social events, etc. We are looking for members of the community who are interested in donating their time for this cause in both leadership and support roles. If interested, please email me at annemarie4braintree@gmail.com. Why are we doing this? Because this will enhance the lives of our seniors and give us the ability to do more for them. Again, if anyone is interested in donating their time to this great cause, please email me at annemarie4braintree@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Quilty, and I thank you for your efforts, along with the mayor, in reviving the Friends of Elder Services. I think it's a great cause that we all can unite behind, and we'll do great things for senior members of our community, of which I am one now. So thank you. Any other announcements? Vice President Maglio.
Thank you. So just a friendly reminder that this week is the third week of the month. So on the third Thursdays, we meet as the East Braintree Community Action Coalition at the Braintree Yacht Club on Gordon Road. Tomorrow night, we're having an evening, a conversation with the mayor. So we're super excited for the mayor to come back and visit us again. And we've given her plenty of time on the agenda. So come, ask questions, raise your concerns, and we'll have a good time starting at 6:30 at the Braintree Yacht Club. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Maglio. Any others? Thank you. We are going to depart from our agenda and take a couple of matters out of order to save a couple of young students, let them get back to their homework tonight, and save them from having to listen to our business. So if there's no objection, I will move to number 26020, mayor appointment to the Herring and Fisheries Commission, Liam Sweeney, or take up any action relative thereto.
So moved. Second.
The motion is made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Do we want to hear from these members, or, yeah? And the next person is McKayan Lupton. Would you come up too? And if I say your name wrong, you can throw a shoe at me or something. I apologize. Just introduce yourself and please tell us why you're interested in doing this.
First off, thank you for letting us speak. I'm Liam Sweeney. I'm a lifelong resident of the town of Braintree. I attend Braintree High School. In my free time, I'm in various athletics at Braintree High School. I'm involved in Mall UN, as well as I run cross country and track for Braintree High School as the captain. I always loved fishing. I always enjoyed taking trips down to Sunset Lake or Pond Meadow, and I always enjoy seeing on my rides to school a deer from the woods or whatever like that. And I'm just saw the opportunity as being a student warden. I always enjoyed government and learning about politics as well as the environment and nature, and I'm hoping to work on this commission as I've been attending meetings for the past few months, getting involved and making a difference in the town of Braintree and learning how this information will be helpful for the future, even if some people might think little herring might not be the most important thing for life lessons. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is McKayan Lupton. I'm also a senior at Braintree High School. I spend a lot of my time out in nature. I'm a rock climber. I hike through the woods a lot, and I like build terrariums. I want to go into like environmental policy and stuff. So I heard about the Herrings and Fisheries Commission by the Environmental Club, and it seemed like something that was really interesting to me. So I applied, and then Matt and the mayor got back to me, and now here I am. So I'm really grateful to be given this opportunity to give back to town and help with the migration of the herring.
Thank you. Do any councilors have any questions? Okay. I just want to make sure that I follow the, oh, do we got it? Oh,
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you. Thank you, President Moore. And thank you to the two students for stepping up and serving the community. I think this is an awesome opportunity both for you and for the town, especially as we're getting the river revived, and really appreciate you taking the time to be here tonight and then for your service in the future. I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
everybody. All right, both of these orders require same-night action, so I'm going to read again, 26020, mayor appointment to the Herring and Fisheries Commission, Liam Sweeney. Is there any objection to same-night action? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve Article 26020?
So moved, Council President.
Motion is made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Yeah, would you read the motion?
Sure.
Yeah.
On the matter of 26020, mayor's appointment to the Herring and Fisheries Commission, Liam Sweeney, or take up any action relative thereto.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Moving to 26021. Again, this needs same-night action. Is there any objection to order 26021 being taken on same-night action? Okay. Hearing none, is there a motion on order number 26021?
Okay. Wait a second. We have to do the other one, too.
Okay.
Okay. Upon the request of Her Honor, Mayor Joyce, the Town of Braintree, through the Braintree Town Council, and in accordance with Section 2-10 and 3-3 of the Town Charter, approves the appointment of McKayan Lupton to the Herring and Fisheries Commission as a non-voting youth member.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. We're not going to redo the first one. I think we're good. Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and I hope you enjoy your time in the fisheries. I hope Mr. Sisk provides you with waders and all the other necessary equipment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Since venturing off, we're going to go back to the order of business that we have. Approval of minutes for March 3rd, 2026. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of March 3rd, 2026?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Moving back to old business, order number 26004. Council President, appointment of town auditor, or take up any action relative thereto. This appointment was referred to two committees, the Committee on Personnel Issues and the Committee on Ways and Means. I'll first refer to Councilor Baraka, Chair of the Committee on Ways and Means, for a recommendation on Order 26004.
Thank you very much, President Morin. The committee met at the beginning of the month on March 3rd to take up this matter, and I see we have members of CLA in attendance this evening. The committee is providing the council with a unanimous favorable recommendation. And if I might, President Morin, I'll just add a few bits and pieces from our discussion at the Committee of Ways and Means, where the town auditor, for residents who may be watching, is one of the few roles that reports directly to the council. We have worked with CLA for a number of years, and the consensus among the committee members was that their institutional knowledge, along with not just what they do, but how they do it and how they conduct their business with the town, that is incredibly collaborative, incredibly insightful, and always within the budget we provide. So that's a really important note for people to know. We give them a budget, they work within that budget, and they do not exceed it. So we are sending this with a lot of enthusiasm and looking forward to hopefully their approval tonight as we approach budget season. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Baraka, and thank you for your work with Ways and Means. I will now refer to Councilor Flaherty, Chair of the Committee on Personnel Issues, for a recommendation on Order 26004.
The Committee on Personnel Issues met and discussed this question and fundamentally agreed with the tenor of the conversation that was held in Ways and Means. So for all the same reasons, we have unanimously voted to positively recommend CLA. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty, and thank you for members of the committee for their work on this issue. We have in attendance members of Clifton, Larson, Allen. I see Sean and Catherine Pomeroy. Is Michael? Yeah, all three of you are here. Excellent. Would any of you like to speak? And we're not paying you for your time tonight, so be brief.
We are off the clock for billing tonight. Thank you, Council President, and thank you to all the other members of the council. Just wanted to say a quick thank you for the unanimous Ways and Means and personnel vote. We've really enjoyed our time here in Braintree. I think it was almost 9 years ago at this point that we came into the town of Braintree. We were a team of 4. We're now a team of 18, and we have grown exponentially. Not only doing similar type of work from town accounting services, finance director, grant services, ERP implementation, sort of the whole gamut, treasury work, et cetera, whatever our local governments need in terms of accounting and finance. Something that I know we heard last time when we came up for reappointment too was, we love the work, how can we get more out of you and within budget? And so we really took that to heart last time. And what I was able to do was run some numbers for the past 27 months. Why 27 months? Because we also upgraded our system, and I can only go back that far to December of 23. But during that time frame, I'm sure as most of you remember, I did the lion's share of the work, really within the first 2.5 contracts, if you will. And I'm happy to announce, not only from a personal standpoint, but also from your standpoint, I'm sure too, out of those past 27 months, I've only done 40% of the work. So that means the other 60% have been done by wonderful team members such as Catherine Pomeroy, Mike Mencio, and others who are obviously not in attendance tonight. Being able to push some of that work down, as we say, and delegate, where I can just review the work versus do the work, saves time, energy, and effort in my billing rate. So I know we took that to heart, and we're happy to say that we were able to make that happen. And just to go over some of our current services, when we came in, I think the position had been empty for a little bit of time, so there was a little bit of catch-up work in terms of getting that institutional knowledge about what the town needs, how it worked, obviously personalities, and getting to know some of the history. So the first thing we did was really attack anything that was on the management letter comments or any kind of significant deficiencies, material weaknesses, and that's what we started after. After that, we started looking to internal controls, building out COSO plans, doing a lot of reviews, whether it was capital budgets, annual budgets, tax recap, combined balance sheets, free cash, you name it. And most importantly, in my mind too, I think we've helped be a sounding board for our council members. When I look around the room, I think only Dave was here when we first started too. So there's been a lot of turnover within the council government. And we're just happy to always be part of it and respond back as quickly and as promptly and fully as possible to you all. So that's my little spiel, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Would any councilors have any questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Would any councilors wish to speak on this matter? Councilor Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. President. I fully endorse the reappointment of CLA. They've done a fantastic job for the town. They actually have saved us a lot of money in terms of the types of services they've been able to provide us, and I think it's noteworthy to note the structure in which their services have been presented to us that have allowed us to take most advantage of some of these important projects they've undertaken for us, and to do so at a very reasonable rate. I think it was just a no-brainer from the perspective of the council and my own personal feelings that we reappoint CLA, and I'm very happy that the Ways and Means and the council as a whole has considered that in a positive light. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, thank you, Councilor Reynolds. If no one else is going to speak, I will just add that in a briefer time than most on the council have had here, my interactions with the work of CLA have been very positive. They do a very good job of informing the council's decisions. And they challenge the council to do something with the information they provide so that we can better inform not only our decisions, but those people that we serve. And I think a lot of the work that the council received from our auditor over the last couple of years informed the decision to go for an override, the need to be more transparent in our budgeting, and to do revenue forecasting and adhere to those revenue forecasts. And when we depart from it, we have to be responsible and figure out either we've got to bring in new revenue or close the gap some other way. You've helped change the culture here, and it's not only you, Sean, but your team has, and we're really appreciative of that. If there is no further discussion, I would entertain a motion on Order 26004.
Motion. Upon the request of the Council President, the Town of Braintree, through the Braintree Town Council, it is so ordered. Pursuant to Section 2-8A of the Charter of the Town of Braintree, the Town Council approves the appointment of Clifton Larson Allen as Town Auditor for a 3-year contract effective April 24th, 2026 through April 23rd, 2029.
Is there a second? Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Turning now to order number 26009, Mayor Stormwater Ordinance Amendment or take up any action relative thereto. This is a public hearing that was continued for March 3rd, 2026. Is there a motion to open the public hearing for order 26009?
So moved, Mr. President.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are now open. Councilor Ringus is absent. Would someone from the Committee on Ordinance and Rules be able to report on the recommendation for Order 26009? Councilor Sterling.
Thank you, President Moore. The Committee on Ordinance and Rules, we met on March 4th, and we voted for a unanimous favorable recommendation to the full council on Order 26009.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Sterling. Would anyone from the mayor's staff like to speak on the order?
Good evening. Matt Jocks, DPW Director. Thanks for allowing me to speak on this motion tonight. So what you have in front of you is a packet that was prepared by our stormwater manager, Hillary Waite, who unfortunately is no longer with the town. So I'm going to do my very best to walk through this presentation and answer any questions that you might have. The first page is just a little background on the Stormwater Enterprise Fund and the enterprise when it was created back in May of 2018, which allowed the DPW to establish a separate stormwater division. Really, it was done to address the requirements of the 2016 MS4 general permit. Now there is a new 2024 permit, but it hasn't been released yet. So as we move through, so just give you a little bit of a background here. So the next page just talks a little bit about the 2018 MS4 permit and the requirements. There were 6 control measures that were required with no clear funding source. As we move forward, the draft release of the 2024 MS4 permit is requiring communities, again, to execute 6 control measures, and it's just getting a little bit more expensive for us. So in preparation for that, actually, we'll go a little bit back. The next page just talks about how the stormwater fee is calculated. So we talk about ERUs, or equivalent residential units, which is 2,780 square feet of impervious area. So what this shows here is Town Hall and how the rate would be calculated for the impervious area. So there's 107,000 square feet divided by the 2,780, there's 38.5 ERUs. At our current rate of $67.80 an ERU, there's $2,610 approximately for the Town Hall purpose area. If we go to the next page, it'll talk about the rate. So a single family is 1 ERU or $67.80. Multifamily, we talk about, it's still 1 ERU, and the landlord can decide how they want to break up that ERU. So our average ratepayer is paying about $135.60. And then what we really want to talk about tonight is our large multifamily, our businesses and industrial. There's a cap on the number of ERUs. So the maximum number of ERUs we charge currently is 116.7 or $7,912.26. So the current ordinance applies to a maximum, it applies a maximum value to each parcel of 116.7 ERUs. So if we took our largest parcel, it's about 3 million square feet of impervious area, they still, which would be 1,127 ERUs, they're only paying the $7,912 a year. In effect, 10% of Braintree's privately owned impervious area is not subject to the fee calculation and assessment. So again, all on the parcels carrying the largest amount of impervious area. So we're really not charging our largest users equitably or fairly. So if we remove the cap, that adds approximately 2,550 ERUs would be subject to the stormwater fee. at the rate, at the FY26 rate, that's $172,890, or about 10.5% of the Stormwater Division FY26 budget. This also helps prepare us to address the 2024 MS4 permit requirements. And then on the next page, we'll just give you a little bit of an idea of other large parcels, in the Norfolk County communities. The stormwater team, Hillary and her team, took a look just to see what the cost would be in other areas, to make sure that we were aligning ourselves correctly, that we weren't asking for something that was unreasonable. So our current, Braintree current is about 25 cents per square foot, whereas you can see that's well below other towns within the Norfolk area. So Dedham's at $11, Canton's at $2.89. So we are certainly well below our neighbors. If we took our largest ratepayer, the graph on the next page just shows, if we took our largest ratepayer now and put them into another community, you can see what their rate would be. So we're at, like I said, that $7,900. They would be at about $344,000 if they were placed in Dedham. So all this comes down to us asking for your consideration in changing the regulation to allow us to remove that per parcel cap.
Okay. Thank you, Director Jakes. Is there any council member that would wish to speak on this matter? Okay. Is there anyone from the general public that is wishing to speak on Order 26009? Going once, going twice. Okay, seeing none. Is there a motion to close the public hearing for Order 26009?
So moved.
Motion's made. Is there a second?
Second?
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Is there a motion for Order 26009?
Yes, to amend Municipal Code 3.13.0.040 by striking the following. E, the annual charge will be as follows. For residential properties with 1 to 3 family dwellings, the annual charge shall be 1 ERU billing unit. For all other properties, the number of ERU billing units shall be calculated by dividing the parcel's impervious area by 2,780 square feet and rounding the resulting value to the nearest tenth. However, if the calculated value is less than 1, a value of 1 shall be used instead, or for non-residential property, if the value is greater than 116.7, a value of 116.7 shall be used instead. And inserting in its place, E, the annual charge will be as follows. For residential properties with 1 to 3 family dwellings, the annual charge shall be 1 ERU, equivalent residential unit, billing unit. For all other properties, the number of ERU billing units shall be calculated by dividing the parcel's impervious area by 2,780 square feet and rounding the resulting value to the nearest tenth. However, if the calculated value is less than 1, a value of 1 shall be used instead.
Thank you, Vice President Maglio. Is there a second?
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you for your work on this.
Thank you very much.
Director Jakes. Now moving to 26010, transfer of funds for the Utility Workers Union of America, AFL-CIO, Local 466, UWUA, or take up any action relative thereto. This is a public hearing. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to open the public hearing for Order 26010.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. I'll now refer again to Councilor Baraka, Chair of the Committee on Ways and Means, for a recommendation on Order 26010.
Thank you very much, President Moran. The Committee of Ways and Means met last night, and again, we are sending this to the Council with a unanimous favorable recommendation. I have one note that I'm sure Director Jacques will also touch on. This is for the Utility Workers Union of America, and in this instance, this refers to our water and sewer department workers rather than electrical utilities or other types of utilities. So I wanted to call that out and also say these are the folks who are treating our drinking water, fixing any water main breaks. They're in trenches and manholes, and we had quite a good discussion about that last night as well. So just a little clarification before we get started. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Is there anyone from the mayor's staff that would like to speak on the order? Director of Finance, Mike Esmond.
Thank you. Good evening, President Moran and members of the council. I am Mike Esmond, Finance Director, and thank you, Madam Chair, for the comments as an introduction. I think that was great and helpful. Probably just a couple additional points. This member group represents, I think right now, I want to say 18 filled positions, actual employees, but there are a number of other additional vacancies that we've had, some longstanding. I was a member of the negotiating team on behalf of town management, but along with Director Jacques, the town solicitor, the HR director, we began these negotiations in May. We are currently in a cycle where all of the town units are outside of their contracts that expired on June 30th. So hopefully this represents the first of several that will be brought before the council in the ensuing months. I would say probably just to characterize these negotiations, they were, they took several months. They were not easy, but I think they were always professional and very cordial. We were challenged to think about things by the unit. There was a number of proposals on each side, and one of the most critical things we worked to address mutually is to deal with essentially that a number of the job descriptions of these union members had not been updated in a while, and we wanted to address some of the issues and challenges we had with respect to the licensure requirements of these positions and how they stood and how they were classified, particularly across other town positions, in ensuring that we are able to continue to competitively recruit members for these important teams, particularly as they are serving our community and critical infrastructure every day, and including really 24/7 responsiveness and services. We addressed that via an adjustment we made to reclassify a number of the positions, regrade them, and then negotiated a number of other matters. I can say also, as we reported at Ways and Means last night, that this agreement conforms to the beyond that to the financial conditions, particularly on the COLA increases that we have been working to reach agreement with for all the units. Again, I think we're hopeful that we will be coming back similarly with results with our other units, and again in the ensuing months that are that are to come. Lastly, I'll just say that the important with respect to the motion. As the chair noted, these are all employees that are paid out of the enterprise fund, the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund. The motion that's before you would fund the cost of the first year associated with this agreement through an appropriation from retained earnings. The retained earnings balance that was certified by the Division of Local Services was $5.5 million for fiscal '25, so that's available. We have appropriated some of those funds, but the bulk of that is available, and so there is a safe balance from which to appropriate for the purposes of filing this and funding this collective bargaining agreement. So I'll stop and see if there's any questions, and I appreciate the opportunity to present on this.
Thank you, Director Esmond. Does any councilors have any questions? Any statements they want to make? I'll ask, in addition to the monetary adjustments, were there any changes in the collective bargaining agreement's language relating that management was seeking that they obtained during the negotiations for increased efficiencies or anything like that?
I'm sorry, Mr. President. Can I understand that? Are you asking, are there things that we negotiated for or were advocating for?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it wasn't just one-sided. I think there was, I mean, one is I think it's helpful for us to work with, in collaboration with them to update the job descriptions. I think one of the issues we do have is that we do want to fill some of these positions that are hard to fill. And working with them, they actually brought, I would say that the other side brought a lot of suggestions and concepts for that. I think the other important thing that that was a big gain, and I think one of the folks should know one of the things that we did do was, and this is really Matt and his team, but sit down with other members of the management team and them jointly and actually go through actual job descriptions and things that needed to be updated and do that collaboratively. And that's an important thing, and I think getting that support is actually really helpful for management, across a number of things. They know their work. But I think the other piece of this is that, we had advocated for, trying to bring some more uniformity here in this agreement, and I think hopefully you'll hear this in other agreements, so looking for ways that we can have a more consistent treatment, whether it's vacation accruals, things as small as that, or when you accrue your personal days. There's 12 units, not all, but most are administered by the town, by town side management, and many of them have different terms and conditions essentially. So we're trying where we can to bring uniformity to that. So that's another area that we sought for, and we were able to get some things there. That's going to continue to be an important theme, I think, we hope for.
Yeah, if you can get everybody to the same date rather than doing on an anniversary of beginning of employment, you can save a lot of time in your accounting office and things like that, in administering benefits and stipends and things like that are in CBA. So if you were able to achieve that, that's an underrated efficiency that makes life a lot easier for everyone.
Yeah.
So, is there anyone from the general public wishing to speak on this order 26010? Seeing none, is there a motion to close the public hearing on 26010?
So moved?
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We've now closed the hearing. Is there a motion for order 26010?
Yes. Motion that the sum of $140,000 be transferred from fiscal year 2025 water and sewer retained earnings to fund the fiscal year 2026 portion of a collective bargaining agreement between the Town of Braintree and the Utility Workers Union of America, AFL-CIO Local 466, for the period July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026, and provided further, the Director of Municipal Finance is authorized to allocate said sums to and among various accounts affected thereby in such amounts as are proper and required.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you for your work on this, Director Esmond and Director Jakes. Now turn to order number 00222 or 00226, Council President, Town Council Rules Review. I'll refer to Councilor Sterling, Vice Chair of the Committee on Ordinance and Rules, for recommendation on item 00226.
Thank you, President Moore. The Committee on Ordinance and Rules, we have multiple meetings to discuss the Town Council rules. Over these times, we had robust discussion over them, but as you know, there was a huge look at the rules a couple years ago that Town Council did, and looked at, every word and cleaning it up. So there wasn't a lot of fixing we found, but there was a few we looked at, and we voted for a unanimous favorable recommendation to the full council on item 00226. Rule 61, adoption of rules. These rules will be reviewed and adopted within 90 days after the first council meeting in every year. The rules O and R discussed were Rule 30, Rule 31, and Rule 64. Members of the committee voted in favor to revise Rule 31 and Rule 64. Members did not vote to revise the revisal to Rule 30.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Sterling. We're going to take each of these rules individually. Would any council member wish to speak on any of these items? Councilor Baraka?
Thank you very much, President Moore. And I just was wondering, Vice Chair Sterling, maybe you could shed some light on why Rule 30, the committee voted not to revise. So for the public watching, Rule 30 states right now, public hearing comments from 5 minutes. There was a suggestion made to change it to 3 minutes. It sounds like that suggestion was rejected by the committee. Is that right?
That is correct.
And can you just shed a little light on that decision-making process, if possible?
Of
Or
course.
anybody else? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Yes, the committee discussed it, as Chair Ringus, Councilor Ringus led us in the discussion. What we decided was we talked to the clerk of the council, Sue Semino, about how long hearings have gone in the past. A couple of us being new to this council, and it's a very rare situation for the meetings to go past the time that we have. And that we think that at no time was the public comment period an issue of having these 5 minutes, an issue of elongating meetings, and it went kind of against, the transparency and, allowing this public to speak. We get the ability to speak, twice a month every time there's a meeting here for as long as we want, right? And it gives them an opportunity to get up there and speak, and they don't normally do that. I mean, it's nervous for me to speak in public, right? Never mind someone coming up and being passionate about something and getting their thoughts together and just to talk and be in front of people that they're normally not. So we think that the 5 minutes is enough and should stay. And I think doing it to 3 kind of it stops them from being able to do that. So that was our thinking.
Thank you so much. Thank you, President Warren.
Thank you, Councilor Baraka, and thank you, Councilor Sterling. Any other discussion? Is there a motion to adopt Town Council Rule 30 as amended?
So moved.
Okay.
Should I read the,
Well, this is the one that wasn't recommended.
right?
So if
So
there is,
Can
pardon?
we clarify how we need to vote then?
Right.
So we need a motion, we need a second, and then all in favor? If someone's in favor,
Yeah,
say
so
yes.
it would be a straight vote to adopt the amendment to Rule 30, which the effect would be to reduce it from 5 minutes to 3 minutes. You don't have to read the whole motion.
Okay.
The motion is to adopt council rule. So is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second? There's motions made and seconded. All those in favor of adopting Town Council Rule 30 as amendment, say aye. And all those opposed? No.
No.
Nay.
Okay. The motion fails. Moving to Rule 31. The Ordinance and Rules Committee voted in favor to revise Rule 31 by adding a sentence, the counselor shall call in remotely via phone or over video conference to participate in the vote. Councilor Sterling, do you want to elaborate on this at all, or on this discussion?
Sure. Again, briefly, President Moore, thank you. It was already in Rule 31 about attendance for hearings and voting, and there was a sentence in here about being able to be virtual and vote, but there was nothing specifically saying that you had to call in virtual to vote. So we wanted to add that in there, as we know with the times now, that we do have the ability, whether it's through Teams or Zooms or some other technology. So we just wanted to be more specific in this rule that the counselor shall call in remotely via the phone or video conference to be able to participate if the president deems that necessary. Thank you.
Any discussion among the counselors on this rule? Okay, I'll read the total rule as proposed to be amended. Any counselor may vote on enactment of an ordinance or measure if that counselor is absent from a public hearing on the said ordinance or measure, provided that the counselor, in his or her opinion, is fully informed of all testimonial and other matters before the council at the public hearing as provided by available videotapes, audio tapes of the record of minutes, etc., of that public hearing. The counselor shall call in remotely via phone or over the video conference to participate in the vote. Is there a motion to adopt Town Council Rule 31 as amended?
So moved.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? That is unanimous. Moving to Rule 64. The Rule 64 deals with travel conference reimbursement policy for counselors. You want to describe this one, Counselor Sterling?
There was previously a policy that allowed for such reimbursements to be submitted to the president with a prioritization of a limit of $2,500 per year for each counselor. We removed that section. It's something that wasn't budgeted for in the past. It's not budgeted for now, especially with the financial times that we are in. We did put in a small here that there may be some times where there is some reimbursement necessary or small reimbursements up to the president's decision. If we do go to a local conference, that's going to help the town in that area. But again, it's actually a necessary expenses. And so we just thought that it was unnecessary to have that 2,500 number in there, especially when it's not budgeted for and it's not really used now or currently in this year. So that was why we kind of did that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Sterling. Is there any discussion amongst councilors? I will read Rule 64 as proposed. Rule 64, travel conference reimbursement policy for Braintree Town Councilors' expenses. Subject to the appropriation, the town councilors may be entitled to reimbursement of the actual and necessary expenses incurred in the performance of their duties, including but not limited to conference and meals. Oh, the good old days. This appropriation shall require pre-approval from the council president. Good luck, everybody. So I think this language is far more appropriate for the realities of how we conduct our business. I think the most common conference that we attend is the MMA, and that's a few $100s, annually. So thank you for your work on this, members of the ONR committee. I will entertain a motion to adopt Town Council Rule 64 as amended. Is there a motion?
Motion to amend Rule 64.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, now we're moving to Communications 1126, Council President, Town of Weymouth, MWRA Project Update. The Town of Weymouth Chief of Staff Ted Langell and their consultant Ryan Algrove of Apex Companies are going to be here to provide an update regarding the Town of Weymouth's MWRA proposal to install a 36-inch water transmission line through the town of Braintree to enhance the water service capacity for the town of Weymouth. This project will have significant impacts on the town of Braintree and its residents as part of their MEPA submittal on the MWRA pipeline start of April. They need to have a public information meeting and invite Braintree residents. This is tentatively scheduled for Monday, March 23rd at 6 p.m. in Cahill Auditorium to address further community concerns. Is this date and time confirmed by the mayor's office?
It is.
Thank you. First of all, I want to welcome Ted Langell, former Finance Committee Chairman in the town of Braintree before the change of government. He has gone to a lesser community since then and assumed different duties, but welcome back to your better home. Mayor Joyce, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening, Council. Just to set the stage a little bit, and I'll hand it off to Ted for a presentation, but this has been, I think, talked about maybe less formally over the years about this concept of Weymouth bringing MWRA water down south through, I think when I had first become mayor, there were a couple routes that were contemplated through Quincy and Braintree, most recently in a meeting that we had with Weymouth in October. And I do want to recognize that Mayor Melise is here this evening as well with his team, so we thank him for being here too. But the sort of route has kind of settled into be more settled and in Braintree. So when we had met with them in October, we had talked about mitigation and projects that we would want to collaborate on as we move into planning for this potential project. So the mayor's office did issue a letter in October to Weymouth talking about some of that mitigation that we would be looking for. When Weymouth had reached out a couple weeks ago about needing to schedule a public meeting as part of their MIPA review process, we wanted to make sure that they were able to come and speak to the council ahead of that public meeting, because there really hasn't been a lot of talk in the public and especially before the council with the status of this project. So I'm happy to be here tonight to hear an update that they're providing. So just welcoming the opportunity for you to review that, and this is certainly the beginning of what I think will be quite a long discussion, but just want to make sure that you're engaged and informed. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ted. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Joyce. Mr. Langell.
Thank you, Mayor Joyce. Mr. President, councilors, it's nice to be back. Having flashbacks about being in front of town meetings, so this seems a little maybe friendlier. I'm, again, Ted Langell, Chief of Staff to Mayor Melise in the town of Weymouth. As Mayor Joyce said, Mayor Melise is here. Also, Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations, TJ Lacey, is with us too. And Ryan Algrove will be doing the presentation from Apex, formerly known as Environmental Partners. Just for a little background, Weymouth, like many South Shore communities, is trying to address our water capacity concerns for now and the future. In addition to that, we have, since mid-1990s, been trying to find a permanent water source for the redevelopment of the former South Weymouth Naval Air Station. So those two issues combined is why we're here and why we're pursuing this pipeline from the MWRA. So this is a pipeline that would come from just over the border in Quincy, through Braintree and into Weymouth and going to our current Gray Pond and water treatment plant. The other part of this is that this time around, as we make this effort, we have the Commonwealth as partners in this effort to develop the former South Weymouth Naval Air Station, with housing being the key component of the Healy-Driscoll administration. And this is a development that would be up to 6,000 housing units and over 2 million square feet of commercial space. So a very large project, and identifying a permanent water source has always been the hurdle that we haven't gotten over in the past, and we think we're on the way to getting over that this time around, but that is going to need cooperation with both the town of Braintree and the town of Quincy. So as part of our application, which all of this is a part of now, we will have to have an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Braintree and the town of Quincy as part of our application. So the application is not complete without those things happening. So with that, Ryan has copies of the presentation that he can give out and go through, and then we'll take any questions you might have.
Okay. Thanks, Ted. Thank you again to the council. And I'll let those circulate around, as it is sort of very helpful to have a visual with most of the things I'm going to be talking about. Again, my name's Ryan Algrove from Apex. I'm an engineer, and I'm the town of Weymouth's water consultant. the agenda for this presentation is to give you an overview of the project, the basics of the infrastructure we're proposing. Ted just did a very good job of explaining why we're doing it. I don't think that that's as important to the town of Braintree beyond what Ted already explained. But obviously, there's a ton of more detail that went into that, goes into that discussion. The impacts that we anticipate for a construction project of this magnitude, the potential benefits that have been identified through our ongoing work with the Braintree DPW and the Braintree Mayor's Office, over the past year or so, what the proposed schedule for the project is, and then what our outreach looks like in the foreseeable future in the sort of design and planning stage, and then obviously any kind of outreach would continue on, through the project life cycle, which extends, into the early 2030s. So I'm on page 4 of the handout here, the project overview. So as Ted mentioned, the overarching goal here is to supplement Weymouth's water supply and meet all the projected demands of Weymouth plus the Naval Air Station, and which far exceeds what Weymouth's existing water supplies could possibly handle. The way we do that is bring MWA water in from its existing extent, which is in the Blue Hills Reservation off of Willard Street, the Pine Hill Cemetery in Quincy. Just behind there, the MWA has an existing easement that connects from Willard Street to their pipeline that we can use to connect. And then from there, it's a 6.7-mile transmission main to the Weymouth Great Pond Water Treatment Plant, where we would construct a pump station, and then that pumps into Weymouth's system. So of that 6.7-mile route, 5.6 miles is in Braintree. So obviously Braintree heavily impacted, and the majority of the construction would take place here. Like I said, there's one pump station to be built, but that would not be located in Braintree. So the infrastructure proposed in Braintree is all buried. Page 5 just shows that route. It's as straight a line as you can draw along the streets between the 2 points we're trying to get to, or from and to. So it's essentially Route 37 for the north half, Granite Street, Franklin Street, and then Washington, and it crosses the Manattaquit River onto Plain, and then bears onto Grove south out to the Weymouth town line. The impacts of this type of construction, it's utility construction, so it is a larger pipeline than most utility construction, but the impacts are similar. You have your noise and your dust and your traffic issues that come up with utility installation. The pipe is, like I said, it's a larger utility than typically you'll see on the side of the road. That's going on every day in Braintree, I'm sure, during construction season. What that means is the progress is a little bit maybe slower than a normal construction project, but it's a moving work zone, so the construction duration overall may be, say, 2 years, but it's not 2 years in one location. It's, what we estimate is that it's 60 feet per day. So people who are impacted 1 month, the construction zone should be past their neighborhood in another month or two. So although the construction duration is long, it's not long for any one neighborhood for an extended period of time. We do anticipate that the majority of the work will have to occur at night. That's because the entire route in Braintree is under Mass DOT jurisdiction, and our initial outreach to them and discussions about what their requirements are going to be include, night work because of the traffic impacts. And we did do a traffic study of this whole corridor in, I think, April or May of last year to see, just to have a baseline of data at peak hour. What if you took a lane? What if you did this? What if you did that, to see what the impacts would be? And certainly during, high volume times, evening and morning commutes, any sort of construction where you're taking up lanes has a detrimental impact. But at night, when we think most of this traffic will have to occur, the impacts are minimal. The level of service that would be maintained on the roadways would be acceptable. But that being said, I'm not trying to glaze over what the traffic impacts would be. There would be a combination of lane closures. So if the construction zone is off to the side of the road, we would do alternating traffic, which I'm sure you've driven through before, with police officers directing the drivers. Or in some cases, we expect that temporary detours would be necessary if the roadway right-of-way and the location of the work zone is such that we can't get traffic around. We would have to come up with a temporary detour during construction hours at night, and then once the construction crews are off the road at 5 a.m., traffic returns to normal. That is the goal here, is that during the normal daytime hours that there's no lane closures or permanent traffic impacts. There are two locations where that is especially challenging, and we've come up with some concepts to maintain normal traffic flow patterns during the construction. And those locations are on Granite Street at the I-93 crossing. And these are special locations because the pipeline has something in the way. So we have to go under I-93, and there's also a large culvert that is a regulatory floodway that we have to go under. So in order to do that, the work zone is going to have to park there for probably 2 to 3 months. And we would just have to structure that work zone so that road plates can go over the trenches during the day, and then they would work at night and continue, like I said, for 2 to 3 months until the work is complete. The other location is at the Manatequit River crossing at Plain Street. There's a railroad crossing there. There's the river. It's a difficult intersection to get through with a large pipe. But similarly, our conceptual plan is to do a tunneling excavation, so that we basically dig 2 shafts on either side of the intersection and put a tunnel boring machine in and put the pipe in under the river, under the tracks, and come out on the other end. So we're not actually trenching through the intersection. And we think that if we follow that approach, we can maintain traffic in the intersection and have as little of impact as possible. So the design of this project, we're just getting off the ground, but we've come up with some concepts for these locations that we know are going to be the most challenging, because we know that the traffic impacts are paramount here. So, obviously, as those concepts become more concrete plans and we have detailed designs to share, we will. But those types of issues are things we're already thinking about. Like I mentioned, the overall construction duration in Braintree is anticipated to be about 2 years. And if you look on page 7, I kind of color-coded the pipeline into sections with months, duration of construction in months, just to give you an idea of, if you split the project in thirds, how long is it going to take to get them from the Quincy line to Five Corners? That's about a 7-month construction duration. And from Five Corners to the Manatequit River, that's another 6 months. And then from there all the way on Grove Street to the Weymouth Town line, that's approximately 8 months of construction. And again, some of the details about, do we do this, just start on one end and work our way towards, from Quincy to Weymouth? Do we partition it in some other way that makes sense? Those are details we haven't worked out yet. The construction duration can certainly be squeezed if there's construction in multiple locations at one time, if they're not going to impact each other. these are the types of things that we have to think about, what makes sense. And obviously, the town of Braintree would be fully involved in those conversations. So those are the impacts. The benefits the potential benefits to Braintree, and these things have been discussed, sort of over the last year. And there's been so many studies done on this corridor traffic-wise that, I think there are more opportunities than I even imagined there would be when we went into this. And the map on page 9 shows, 3 intersections and 2 stretches that were identified in Central Planning Agency studies. So these are improvements that have been identified, but nothing has happened. There hasn't been anything beyond a very high-level concept developed. So, whereas this is the corridor that we're going to go down, it's an obvious opportunity to make, most of these projects that we're showing here on this map and that we have listed are geared towards safety improvements. So it's bike lane accommodation, sidewalks, pedestrian signaling, in some cases accommodation of additional turning lanes, that all ties into pedestrian safety. So these are all opportunities that exist and that are already known going into this project. And I think, in fact, the one here on Grove Street, the town of Weymouth just submitted a grant application with, what's the funding agency? I think the acronym is BUILD. It's a federal, it's a federal grant. So some of these opportunities are already being pursued. So on top of those traffic-related and roadway and pedestrian safety improvement-related benefits, the other types of benefits that we think about are, there is a lot of aging water infrastructure along this route that the town of Braintree owns. So there's, I think I said there's 5.9 miles of roadway we're impacting, and about 3 miles of that is cast iron water mains. So it's probably, turn of the century vintage, probably has lead services. There's a lot of reasons why those cast iron water mains should be replaced. And it's very typical for municipalities to have those older pipes located in state roadways because it's, double the cost to replace a pipe in a state roadway because the state, they have higher requirement, more expensive requirements for road rehabilitation at the end of the project. So it doesn't surprise me to see that. And the way I think about it is we know we're going to have to replace some utilities along the way just because we're trying to put a new utility in roadways that are already full. So there are going to be opportunities for us to say, somebody's utility has to be replaced to accommodate our pipe, and it makes the most sense to me, okay, if there's a utility there that needs to be replaced anyways, let's replace that one. We don't want to replace a plastic gas main to get it out of the way. We want to replace a water main that needs to be replaced. So I think there's a lot of opportunity just inherent to the construction that we're doing anyways for replacing some of Braintree's infrastructure. When one more item that's a potential benefit is redundancy. So we've already spoken to the MWR about this, and we actually included it in our MEPA submittal that went in this week, just to make sure that the interbasin transfer regulators weren't caught off guard. Is that it would make you'd almost be crazy not to make an emergency connection for Braintree if you're going to bring this pipe through. And Braintree has its own water supply. They don't need this water, but I think the only way, with the demand that Braintree has as a town, the only way to get redundancy, all of your neighbors and Weymouth's in the same position, if you ever had a major issue where you needed to replace your water supply for a week or a month, something bad happened at the plant, the neighboring towns don't have that kind of water, but the MWRA does. So having a metered connection and a standard operating procedure in place for full redundancy for the town in a case of an emergency, I think is pretty valuable. I think this is the only way you could possibly have that kind of redundancy. So I think that's a big benefit that this project could bring to the town of Braintree. And I can stop there for now and answer questions. That was a lot of information.
Yes, it was. Thank you. Who would like to start? Councilor Flaherty.
Thank you. So I can well understand why you would target the nighttime hours to do this work, because this is a main artery all the way through Braintree, and it's considerably congested in the best of times. But it's also entirely residential. There are houses all along the way. So with the lights and the noise of construction, has there been consideration given to the disruption to the people who live there overnight?
Yeah, so, Franklin Street, that section, that I definitely agree with that. And this was brought up in some of our discussions earlier. And I think that discussion needs to be had with DOT. The discussions we've had with DOT to this point it's going to have to be night work for traffic reasons. But, that's not set in stone. We haven't even applied for our access permit with DOT yet. So I definitely think that's a consideration that we can push forward, trying to accommodate those residential areas, treating them differently than, the section in front of the South Shore Mall. They're just not the same.
They're not the same, but even in front of the plaza, there are single-family detached homes there presently. And what are the kinds of things that can be done to mitigate the lights and noise at night for people who live there?
Well, certainly on the noise front, you can require contractors to limit their equipment to certain decibel. You can never make it quiet. There's no making that promise. But there are limitations you can put on contractors for the decibel levels that their equipment will put out, things like generators and things like that. Putting sound attenuation up in front of equipment, those are contract requirements that are totally reasonable and not out of the ordinary.
And lighting?
Lighting is tough because it is a safety issue. These guys have to work out there, but I'm not sure how much mitigation there is for lighting, beyond what they need to do to actually do the work. There can be accommodations. I've had projects where we can accommodate residents temporarily if the construction impacts are such that they need to be staying a night in a hotel or something like that. No, that's a consideration we can discuss. I've done that before. If you're right in front of somebody's house and you have to do the work at night. There are mitigation efforts like that could be implemented, certainly.
Okay, where high mast lighting is concerned, one of the things that was employed to try to maximize this, to get all the benefits of the safety that the high mast lighting on highways provides without disrupting the homes of people who live nearby, was just shielding, like basically a lampshade, to direct the light where it needs to go. But I'm not a lighting expert. I will let you be the authority on that. The other question I had was, in Braintree, we try to coordinate our road utility work with all, if we're doing road work, like, we try to coordinate utilities together. So does the state do something like that? Do you try to coordinate your road work for water lines with, say, National Grid or other utilities that might be under the roads, so that people don't have to go through it twice?
Yeah, we're in that process of reaching out to all the utilities. We've already discussed this. Mass DOT doesn't, when we asked them, they didn't have any major projects on their capital list for this corridor, so there was no conflict that they could identify, in this project window. But yes, certainly we make all the other utilities aware, because at the end of the day, the road is going to get paved curb to curb. That's going to be a Mass DOT requirement. So this is the opportunity for those utilities to come in and get their utility replaced before that happens.
Okay, those are my questions for now. Thank you.
Councilor Baraka.
Thank you very much, President Warren. Thank you both and the Town of Weymouth representatives for being here this evening. I really appreciate the information. I didn't know this was happening till I got the Town Council agenda. And that leads into my first question. So the meeting that is taking place on Monday at 6:30 here in Town Hall, where and how has that notice been given and gone out? Because it's less than a week away, which is really like not a lot of time for people to plan their lives. And I personally think that it's insufficient. I think 2 weeks is a rule of thumb. 1 week is like you're squeaking by. 5 days is like not enough for people to plan their lives around. So can you just, but maybe we were the last to know. So which,
No, I would agree with that. And again, this isn't going to be the last public meeting. We're also going to get to later on the communication plan for this project that has a lot of other ways of us to communicate what's going to go on or the plan is, and then when it's happening, when and how, and that includes everything from going door to door to emails to phone calls and all of that. So this is the beginning still of this process, and this is specifically toward fulfilling the requirements for the filing we're doing here, and then we're going to continue a strong communication plan beyond that.
I understand. I work with MIPA filings in my day job. I don't think it's sufficient. Like, where did the notices go out? Are they at the library? Did they go out on schools? Like, who is the audience on Monday night?
Everyone. I mean, because we have one, in addition to Braintree on Monday, we have one in Weymouth on Wednesday.
Okay. So
we have
how
two
would
next
Braintree
week.
residents know this meeting is happening unless they're tuned into this meeting tonight?
It's going to be posted. The communication folks created notices to put out on all
Where?
media. They're going to be on the town websites. They're going to be on social media.
When?
We sent that. I mean, it was recently. So, like I said, I don't argue about short notice, but there will be notices going up, and some have already gone up, but there will be more going up this week.
And then how long is the comment period open for?
For MIPA, I believe it's 30 days. They've already asked for an extension because it's a lot for the regulators to review. So it'll probably end up being more like 45 days.
Okay. And then my next question is there alternate routes? Do you need a preferred and alternate routes, or is MIPA taking one route?
So our initial filing, I guess I could step back even before we did our initial filing, probably 3-4 years ago, there was, I think, 8 routes considered.
Okay.
We sort of take a step back and look at all the potential ways you could get from point A to point B, including different locations to connect to the MWRA. And this is working with them, where we could connect, things like that. And it was narrowed down to 3 when we filed in 2024 with our environmental notification form. But we knew that before we could submit our next filing, which was the environmental impact report, we had to select a route. So we spent, after that initial filing, we spent the next 18 months nailing it down, between talking with Braintree, talking with Quincy, and landing on this route. So there.
Okay, so there was a funnel process.
Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful. And I should have started with, I think regional projects are really hard to do and so important. So I think this is incredibly important for for our sort of like little mini region here of Quincy, Braintree, and Weymouth. And also, when I look at the mitigation, really important for Braintree,
Yeah.
right? This is stuff that we've been trying to get accomplished for years in District 5. And if this project is going to do it, temporary construction for the millions of dollars of mitigation that we could get out of this, I think is a really important trade-off. And thank you to Mayor Joyce, who I know has her finger on the pulse, especially of the Grove Street and Ivory and Pearl intersection. So I think that this is an excellent outcome if this is where we land for Braintree. If I might, President Moran, just another question.
Sure.
I guess I do have serious concerns about the outreach. I looked at your plan. I think it's not off to a great start. I'll be curious to see how many people are able to turn their lives around on a dime and come on Monday night. Is Apex doing the outreach? Are you contracting with like a Burns and McDonnell or?
Yeah, the outreach is being spearheaded by Capital Strategic Solutions.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with them, but yeah, they are like.
They're
an
going to have a
outreach.
field team though?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And then we're thinking this isn't even going to start construction at the earliest till 2029?
Yeah.
That's if everything goes like swimmingly, the permitting process?
Which it will.
Okay. I think my only request is I would be interested to see what the turnout, I think I'm booked on Monday, like what the turnout is on Monday night. I would like to understand, or at some point, where and how and when those communications were posted. Because it's Wednesday at almost 9 o'clock. And that leaves Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for people to find babysitters and get all their information pulled together. And it's just too tight for people. So I will leave it at that. But I do think I do think there's going to be a lot of wins for Braintree here. So thank you, President Moran.
I'm going to give everybody their first chance. Councilor Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank you guys this evening, the town of Weymouth and Mayor Melise, coming here this evening to give us this overview. This is a pretty significant project, and one of the questions that's somewhat related to Councilor, one of the previous speakers' questions. Had you, along the route that you're using, have you had any conversations with Braintree's town engineer in terms of the water pipes? I know you had mentioned the older water pipes, and Braintree has undertaken a multi-year project in updating old water pipes in our road that previous speakers had referred to as kind of when you open up the street or when you repave a street, we take that opportunity to address the old infrastructure and update it. Have you had that opportunity yet, or is that something that's on your agenda too as a task?
Yeah, we've had several meetings with the DPW staff to talk about what the impacts would be, and that's definitely a topic of conversation. Since we don't have, we're working on getting our survey done and having some real plans to work with. So the level of detail isn't there yet, but I think it's very unanimous that that's something that we're going to be looking at, and I think opportunity does exist.
Okay, so and this is early in the process. You're just in the process out. I would suspect then that you would be able to provide to the town. I know I'd be interested in all of the various infrastructure that and maybe what would be getting changed. That'd be very interesting pieces of information for us to be able to digest. And again, I will pay close attention to future conversations that we have. I know it's going to be a significant challenge. My district runs along Franklin Street. It's a thickly settled is a term I would use. Yeah. So with that, you've already enumerated some of the concerns. And to that point, have you an idea of what the hours of operation would be in the evening?
So a typical nighttime operation is 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. on a DOT road.
10 p.m. to 5 p.m.
So that's where DOT would start with their requirements.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, those hours aren't set in stone, but that's usually where you start. And sometimes you're able to start your work night a little bit earlier to keep construction moving, but you sort of have to see how it goes.
And would that be a Sunday through Thursday evening
It'd
schedule?
be, yeah, Sunday night through Thursday night into Friday morning, yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Vice President.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming here tonight. Thank you, Mayor. And I didn't even recognize you, TJ. Good to see you. I have a question about the pipes that are going to be replaced. So there's been a lot of talk about the water pipes. What about the sewer pipes? And the reason I'm asking about them is my district is downstream of all of this. Mm-hmm. And the sewage, we have terrible sewer infrastructure as well. And when all of that's opened up, is there any other infrastructure that's going to be improved?
I think there's a possibility that during design we see that, okay, the most efficient and cost-effective way to get through this stretch is to replace a sewer instead of a water. I don't expect that to be the case, mostly because sewer infrastructure tends to be deeper, and where we're installing water infrastructure, it's closer to the surface, and that's why we identified cast iron water mains as sort of an easy target, because they're more on the shallow side, maybe 5 feet below the surface. So they're going to be well within our excavation range. So I think sewer tends to be below everything, under the road. So the conflicts usually just aren't there. So if we were to replace sewer, it would be more like us chasing the sewer into deeper areas, sort of just for the reason of replacing the sewer. So I don't anticipate that when we're doing our design that we're going to identify many locations that sewer is what we need to replace to make our pipe alignment work, if that makes sense.
Okay. Another question that would be really helpful, or the information would be really helpful, is there's a process for MIPA. There's many processes that you need to go through. Is there a list of dates and timelines? And the reason I'm wondering is, what are those decision points along the way that people would have an opportunity to weigh in? Or what is the backup plan if something changes and there's a contingency plan? I'm just wondering, what are those opportunities throughout all of this planning for people to have input and good information?
So certainly right now in the MIPA process, this is a great time for public input. So we just submitted our draft environmental impact report, which has a public comment period. Like I said, I think it'll probably be 45 days, so it'll go probably to the beginning of May. And that's our draft environmental impact report. So when we get all those comments, we'll have to incorporate those, and we'll submit our final environmental impact report, which again will have a public comment period. So we're in the middle of a round right now. There'll be another round after that. I think ultimately for Braintree, our plan here is to do these public presentations as the design progresses, 25%, 50%, 75%, as the design gets more fine-tuned and we can provide more details. So residential feedback and all the outreach that will go along with our outreach program here all gets incorporated into the design as we move forward. And ultimately, what needs to happen in order for this project to move forward is that an intermunicipal agreement has to be signed between Weymouth and Braintree. That's a piece of the puzzle that the MWRA needs to approve admission. So, not only do we have to get through our MIPA process, but, the public impact, the public input just internally within Braintree needs to eventually lead to an agreement. So, like I said, the public comment periods for MIPA, basically through the end of the summer, there'll be periods where people can submit their comments, and then we have to respond to them directly. We don't just incorporate our answers into the document. We have to, list their question and put a direct response to it, so people know their voices are being heard. And then all those public presentations and the outreach, over the next 2 years, essentially.
And in addition to, us doing that with our milestones and with our communication team, any feedback or input or request, from the town of Braintree, we would agree to as well if, they thought another meeting was in order at some point along the project. So, we're definitely going to be keeping in touch with the mayor's office in the town to make sure we're doing enough.
Councilor Flaherty, you had a point, and then Councilor Sterling.
My question is quick. Just circling back to the communication, there's a meeting in Braintree on Monday, and you also mentioned a meeting in Weymouth on Wednesday. Are those the same presentations twice, or they're different? So Braintree residents should really come to the Braintree meeting. I get it. Thank you, that's all.
Councilor Sterling.
Thank you, President Moore. Well, thank you guys for your presentation today, and thank you, Mayor Melise, for attending. Very informative. Just had a few quick questions. So when this construction starts, I know that it's all on MassDOT road, so it'll just be MassDOT doing they're in charge of the complete construction of this, other than the connection to Weymouth, or?
No, the construction would be, it will be Weymouth's construction project. DOT has jurisdiction of the road, so all the traffic management plans, all the restoration of the road, all that would have to be approved by them before they give us the permit to open up the road.
So your workers will be doing the work on the road, or Mass DOT will be doing?
The work, yeah, it would be a publicly bid project, so a local contractor, one of the larger local, local contractors would do the work. And we also expect that we wouldn't bid this out as one giant construction. It makes more sense to split it into probably 3 construction contracts, so that you're not, unnecessarily eliminating bidders by making the project so big that they don't have bonding capacity to bid it.
Yeah. And with that, when you do have to close roads and go overnight, you're obviously going to need details, right?
Yeah.
Has that been any discussion of, obviously we're in Braintree, so we'll go to Braintree potentially, but like who's going to pay for that or fund that?
Oh, I think, certainly the construction costs is not going to be borne by Braintree, and we would, give Braintree PD the first choice to fill details.
And one more question. This might be getting a little ahead of it as well, but when completed, this project and the water's flowing to Weymouth, if it happens, there's an issue with the line, there's a water main break, obviously it'll be new, hopefully that doesn't happen, but something like that occurs, who is going to be in charge of fixing that? Is that going to be the Braintree Water and Sewer, now that it's in Braintree, or is that Weymouth comes over and fixes it because that water is going to Weymouth and it was your project?
Yeah, I think because it's a Weymouth owns the infrastructure, it's their responsibility to fix a problem. That communication and how that would work, because you're right, in all likelihood, it's going to be a problem. Somebody's going to call the Braintree DPW. Braintree DPW is going to go out and say, like, oh, that's not a problem with our pipe, that's Weymouth's pipe. That sort of standard operating procedure of how that situation's handled would have to be spelled out, I think, in an intermunicipal agreement. All those terms would have to be determined and agreed upon, but ultimately, it's Weymouth's infrastructure, so they would make the repair.
Isn't it the MWRA's?
No.
So this is accessing MWRA water, transporting it through an MWRA community, and it's not an MWRA.
That's correct.
So if we have a break like the MWRA had this morning in another community, we're waiting for Weymouth to show up?
No, I guess.
Go ahead. I mean, it would be our responsibility yet.
Okay.
I can definitely see there being, mutual aid sort of provisions in an intermunicipal agreement so
Yeah,
that.
but if they get a break in Weymouth, who's going to be the priority? It's a natural thing. This is a regional issue, and it's a regional project, and you're using local maintenance. It doesn't make sense.
So, yeah, and, this goes back to sort of the genesis of the project going back years about, is this an MWRA expanding their system, or is this Weymouth putting infrastructure in to connect to the MWRA? And, to this point, the MWRA has not, they're not interested in expanding and owning this pipe. So the project sort of has become Weymouth's project, because of that reason.
Okay.
And again, that can be addressed in the international agreement.
All right. Councilor Quilty, and then I'm going to go.
Thank you for coming here tonight and presenting your project to us. It's pretty obvious to me that there's going to be benefits to Braintree, and there's also going to be some negatives, including some of the inconvenience to the citizens that live in the town. I know that you're going to try really hard not to be as least inconvenient as possible, but it's just a reality. It's going to happen. My question is, when the projects, I know you have it in different, pieces, like with different locations or whatever, but once your project is done in a certain area, if there's like damage to like the street or the sidewalk or things like that, will those things be fixed in a timely manner? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, and again, I think those timeframes can be built into the agreement that we have as part of our application to the MWRA.
All right.
Yeah, and I think, my experience with DOT, especially in a project of this magnitude, is, like I said, they're going to require a curb-to-curb overlay, so it's going to be a brand-new paved street when, when this project's over, and any sidewalks that we touch are going to have to be replaced in kind. So, the post-construction conditions will be, at worst, the same as before, but, most likely there'll be improvement to the condition of sidewalks and in the roadway especially. It's going to be, like I said, a freshly paved road.
And I do have one more question. If for some reason the project is going to go over time, would you be letting the people in the neighborhood know that? Would you, like, say you planned on being somewhere for, say, a month, but it's going to actually take 2 months or 3 months to finish that particular area? The people in the neighborhood are going to be expecting you to be out of there in a month, and then if you're still there in 3 months, they're going to be like, why are they still here? So are you going to be updating people in the neighborhood and letting them know what's going on as far as timeframes and that kind of thing goes, if there are any changes?
Yeah, I mean, my
Okay.
anticipation is that there'll be, certainly there's already a website dedicated to this, but during construction phase, there's, a dedicated outreach program, a website, updates daily, keeping people informed as much as humanly possible, with how the construction's progressing, updating them with the schedule, things like that, because, construction, plans change, as you know, so keeping residents up to speed on things as soon as they happen is paramount.
Okay, will there be a contact? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, sorry, but that communication effort, we talked about the ground team, that communication effort moves, if you will, with the project.
Okay.
So as the project is moving, that communication is focused on where that project is happening at that moment and the residents in that surrounding area.
Will there be a project manager that people can ask questions to? Like if,
Yes.
if our constituents are coming to us and asking us a question, will there be someone that we could maybe not reach out directly to, but somebody that will be there to answer questions if needed?
Yes, there'll be a contact for a project manager. There'll be a phone number to call. There'll be an email number, email address to use, as well as constantly updating on the website.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Quilty. Okay. I was remiss in not welcoming Mayor Melise this evening. Mayor Melise and Gigi, it means a lot to have you here tonight because it's obvious that you're taking this seriously, that the need for Braintree to be a partner and to receive adequate mitigation is important, and it's vital to this project. Mr. Lacey, I'm used to seeing you when teams you were coaching were beating teams I was coaching. So it's been a while, but it's always good to see you. At least under these circumstances, it's a lot better than what I was used to, taking a beating from the teams you had. Anyway, here are my concerns. This is going to be the largest public works project Braintree's had in decades. And it is going to impact the major commuting routes in and out of this town over a period of 2 years. It is also going to impact the largest taxpayer in the town, the mall. It's going by the mall for several months. It's going to impact that. It's going to impact that adversely. Is it going to impact the 425 apartments that are going to be constructed there? It's going to go past our high school's route. Is it going to impact access and egress to the high school on a daily basis for the months that the construction is taking place there? It's going to further traverse past 3 proposals, one which was recently approved and 2 others, accounting for over almost 1,000 housing units that are going to be the largest economic development that we're going to have in that 2-year period. It's going to go right past that, and that construction is going to go on, and the disruption caused by that construction is going to go on. And then it is going to go up into Grove Street, where Grove Street has been open for the last year or so for infrastructure repair and work, and we're going to open it up again. So this is going to... The mitigation and curb to curb is wonderful, as long as there's flowable fill and good work done and stuff like that. But I think the town has to be looking for more than asphalt and stuff underground. I think Councilor Maglio brings up a point about her concerns with her constituents in the Fore River, and the outflow that presently goes into the Fore River that impacts not only Braintree, it's our outflow, but it goes into Weymouth. This is a project to partner on that is too big, quite frankly, for us to take on alone. And we can't get any traction on it. But if we're going to take on something like this, we should look for an opportunity to partner on something like Councilor Maglio is looking at to solve the outflow problem into the Fore River. Maybe we build a partnership that starts with this and goes in that direction, perhaps. But I had discussions about this with Director Lasky from the MWA and the mayor probably about 10 years ago, and if they're just leaving this to you guys to work out, it's unfortunate. They should be here tonight too. This is their responsibility as well. You're a member. You need the help. They shouldn't be just saying, good luck, and I just can't contemplate that they would put the responsibility for anything that goes wrong with this pipeline on the town of Weymouth. I just don't think that's fair to you. And I don't think that's going to work out well for Braintree, quite honestly. You're going to have your hands full in Weymouth. But we have, your timeline, I think, is realistic. You're looking for an intermunicipal agreement by 2027. I'm sure we'll be talking a lot. And I'm sure the people sitting at this table will make sure that their constituents are informed on this. So I want, it's good to help a neighbor. You guys need this for your economic development. It will benefit you, and it'll benefit the region. But we got to do it the right way, and we're only going to have one chance. And I don't want to understate the impact that it is going to have on this community. And doing it at night sounds good for the numbers on the traffic meters and stuff, but it's going to stink, and I'm choosing my words lightly, for the residents when they're doing this at night. We had nighttime construction on the mall when we added out of the wing there. And it was tough. And so I fully expect that it won't be as disruptive to traffic flow, but quality of life will suffer with night construction, especially from 10 to 5. Anyway, thank you for listening to me. Thank you for meeting your responsibilities. It's good to see you again, Mr. Langell.
It's good to be back. And if I could just say, I appreciate everything you said. I'm not going to disagree with a word of it. I can assure you, we are not here to try to in any way downplay the impacts that this is clearly going to have on Braintree. What I can promise is that we're here to continue the dialogue, continue the efforts, and make those efforts, when we get the feedback from the needs of Braintree and the needs of the mayor and the needs of this council, we're going to go help fight for that in every aspect. And I can assure you that we want to do this project with the minimal amount of negative impact to your community and your residents as possible.
I know you're sincere in that statement, and I look forward to working with you, and I look forward to inviting you back.
Happy to come back anytime.
Okay. You're going to be sorry you said that.
I meant that too.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, TJ. All right. Moving to reports of committees, 26002, appointment of town clerk or any other action there too. Is there a report from the Committee on Personnel and an update on this?
Yes, there is. Thank you. So the position of town clerk is one of the most critical that we have in local government, and filling Jim Casey's shoes in particular is a big task to take on. So right now, in the committee, we are closer to the beginning of that process than we are to the end. But we've met twice, and our initial focus was very process-oriented. This is not the first time that Braintree's had to search out for a new town clerk. So we began our work by reviewing the process used in prior searches. So that showed a fair amount of variation in methods. So conversation was focused on crafting procedures that feel appropriate in this case. And areas of consideration have included whether to confine the search internally or if we should post externally as well. We've ruled out union conflicts with the assistant town clerk's role in taking on the duties as interim town clerk. We've also revised the job description used in the last search and heard advice from Jim Casey about appropriate updates. We've given consideration to salary classification and determined that any salary reclassification should be brought to the full council for a vote. And at the last meeting, we passed 3 motions unanimously. 1, to post the job in 4 locations, including the websites for the MMA, the Massachusetts Town Clerks Association, Master List, and the Town of Braintree. 2, to accept the job description as amended. And 3, to keep the job posted for 3 weeks. So that's where we are right now. Our next meeting will be tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. in the Johnson Chambers at Town Hall. And it's a public meeting, so anyone is welcome to attend.
Thank you, councilors. Are there any questions from the council? Thank you for the work of the Personnel Committee, and thank you for the update. We have another request for same-night action, a letter on Armstrong Crossing to the MBTA or take up any action relative thereto. This is 01226. I'm going to start with, is there any objection to same-night action? Seeing none, I'll turn to Councilor Barrica and Councilor Sterling to describe this letter, if you would.
First of all, thank you, President Moran, and thank you, colleagues on the council, for your time this evening. And I also want to say thank you to our state delegation sincerely for their incredible advocacy and being such an ally for this letter to the T, which I'll explain in a second. But I want to thank Representative Cusack, Senator Bill Driscoll, Senator John Keenan, as well as Mayor Joyce for their advocacy and being such allies. So what we have before you, and thank you to Councilor Sterling for his collaboration on this, is a letter to General Manager of the MBTA, Philip Eng. The reason we are proposing this before the council this evening is because it was advised to us by our state delegation that a collective position by the town council as to what we want to have happen at the Armstrong crossing would go a long way in helping the MBTA hopefully reconsider their decision. And I'll be happy to give a little bit of background, and then Councilor Sterling, if you want to add anything. As folks probably know, on March 3rd, the Braintree Planning Board approved the Armstrong Cork redevelopment, which will be a brand new neighborhood located at 10 Plain Street. Attached to this property, which maybe would be a surprise to people, there is a current pedestrian crossing of the train tracks that would connect what is now a closed-off industrial site, which will be a future neighborhood, to Hancock Street. This is a pedestrian access today. It has lights, it has crossing arms to block off that when it's approaching. You don't cross it today because there's nowhere to go. Over the course of the project process to date, the MBTA has made clear that they do not want pedestrians crossing here anymore or in the future. I do want to make a note that as part of this process, there was an extensive diagnostic team review, it's called, by the MBTA among many, many other participants, including our town's peer reviewer for the project, Ty and Bond, which I know some of you are probably familiar with, and Mass DOT's Rail and Transit subject matter expert. Both of those individuals recommended that an appropriately designed pedestrian crossing be allowed or continued to be allowed at the Armstrong Cork area. So that's the background. Now, why is this important? First of all, it's important because in our Braintree Master Plan, we call for improving walkability and enhancing access to the family-run businesses in South Braintree Square, in addition to our other squares. Without pedestrian access at this crossing, the distance to the MBTA bus stop, which is right there, is more than 5 times as long. And you'll see there's a little map attached to the letter that we hope to submit with your approval. And you can see in the map, the yellow arrow is approximately 500 feet from where one of the new buildings will be located. Without access to that bus stop, you're looking at nearly a half-mile walk for people. So that is, human nature being what it is, much more likely that people are going to get in their car, they're not going to take public transportation, traffic, one of the complaints we all hear about, will be increased, parking in the South Braintree Square, which is another huge problem for our small businesses, and we're reducing foot traffic. So, I know that this project has a ton of potential, and this feels like the last piece that we can help influence to truly bring this up from good to great so that we can maximize foot traffic to our small businesses and minimize people getting into their cars as much as is within our power to do so. So I sincerely appreciate your support on this as we can hopefully make a united appeal to the T to reconsider their position. And Councilor Sterling, a huge thank you to you for your assistance in crafting this letter. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Thank you, Councilor. I'll be brief, hopefully. Thank you, President Warren, for letting us present this letter. And again, thank you to Councilor Berkey for the collaboration on this. And thank you to the rest of the council here. I know we have heard from, or some of us have heard from constituents on this issue as well, and you've reached out as well. And to reiterate, to thank the state delegation, Representative Cusack, and Senator Driscoll and Keenan, who have met with the MBTA and we can kind of be a collective front on this as the town also coming in and making this, this easement open that, as the councilor said, is already open to the pedestrian and bicycle access currently. Their big concern was safety. They quote, there's a lot of near misses, but there hasn't been any issues with safety on that or the other two graded crossings that you can see on the map the councilor showed. And as she mentioned, as the councilor mentioned, it's a longer walk if you close that pedestrian access, correct? But you're going to cross at least one, maybe two graded crossings as a pedestrian anyways. And now you can't get to that bus line. You're not going to use the red line or the commuter, and you're going to get in your car and increase traffic in that area that already has traffic. And again, it issues that, the small businesses there, healthcare, things like that. People are going to try to go to, whether it's South Braintree Square or take a bus line over to the plaza or over to Quincy, but just to get places. And you can't get access to that, and you're going to drive and cause more traffic. And we want people to stay in town and be able to walk, and that was the whole reason for this project. And as the governor said the other day, and she touts, it's transit-oriented projects that they want, and this is one of them. And to stop that and impede on the access to that, to use public transportation, we don't understand why that's happening. So we want to write this letter to show to them that this should be open as it is today, and show our support. So I hope that you vote with us just in support of sending this letter to General Manager Ng. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? No. Yeah, again, I thank Councilor Barrica and Councilor Sterling for their work on crafting this letter. It's the height of irony to me that we are doing an MBTA zoning project that is the pedestrian access to the MBTA is being blocked by the MBTA. So if we can encourage them to see the irony and do something about it, it would be great. So is there a motion on this, on item number 01226?
Yes, there is. Council President, motion to vote in favor to send a letter from the Braintree Town Council regarding the Armstrong Crossing MBTA.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's one more same-night action request to accept a donation, 26022. This is a donation from Sustainable Braintree. Same-night action request. Is there any objection to same-night action request? Seeing none. Is there a motion on order 26022?
Yes. Motion that the town of Braintree be and hereby is authorized in accordance with Section 53A of Chapter 44 of the Massachusetts General Laws to accept the following gift upon the conditions attached and herein set forth. Donor, Sustainable Braintree, gift $250, purpose, Braintree Beautification Day.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Is there a motion to move all remaining items under new business to their respective committees?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, councilors, for your work tonight. If there is nothing further on our next, I appreciate this was a longer agenda than we've had in recent weeks, so I appreciate your hard work tonight. Our next meeting is scheduled for April 7th, 2026 at 7:30 p.m. Thank you, BCAM, for televising, Jerry Carmack and Dave Maybrook. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you and good night.